When we speak of the papacy in the early 19th century, we enter a period when the chair of Peter was still recovering from the profound shocks of the French Revolution and the Napoleonic era. The Church had barely begun to find its footing again in a Europe reshaped by war, constitutional experiments, and the rise of new ideologies. It is in this fragile context that we encounter Pope Pius VIII, whose pontificate lasted scarcely 20 months, from March 31st, 1829 to November 30th, 1830. Though brief, it was not without significance, revealing both the continuities and the cautious adaptations that characterized the post-Napoleonic papacy. Francesco Saverio Castiglione was born on November 20th, 1761, in the small town of Cingoli in the Marches, into a noble family with distant papal connections. His ancestor had been the short-reigned Celestine, the 4th centuries earlier. He received a solid education, first at the Jesuit College in Osimo, then pursuing advanced studies in canon and civil law at the University of Bologna, where he earned his doctorate in 1785. Ordained a priest that same year, he soon entered the world of diocesan administration, serving as vicar general in several sees, Anagni, Fano, and eventually his native Ascoli Piceno. In 1800, Pope Pius VII, who would become something of a model for him, named him Bishop of Montalto. Those were perilous years. When Napoleon imposed his will on Italy, Castiglione refused to swear allegiance to the new Kingdom of Italy or to the Emperor himself. For this act of fidelity to the Holy See, he was arrested in 1808 and endured a series of detentions, first in Milan, then Pavia, Mantua, Turin, and finally France itself, before being released after Napoleon's fall in 1814. Such experiences left their mark. They confirmed in him a quiet but firm commitment to the Church's independence, tempered by a personal temperament that was mild, learned, and inclined toward conciliation wherever possible. In 1816, Pius VII raised him to the cardinalate and appointed him to the see of Cesena, later transferring him to Frascati while naming him Grand Penitentiary, a position of considerable influence in the Curia, especially in matters of conscience and absolution. By the time of the conclave following the death of the austere Leo XII in 1829, Castiglione was well known in Roman circles. France and Austria, seeking a successor less rigid than Leo, looked favourably upon this scholar of canon law, this man of moderate disposition and frail health. After 5 weeks of balloting, he was elected on March 31st at the age of 67, taking the name Pius VIII in conscious continuity with the line of popes who had navigated the Church through revolutionary storms. His pontificate opened in a Europe still simmering with tensions. One of the first major developments he greeted with genuine satisfaction was the passage of the Catholic Emancipation Act in the United Kingdom in April 1829. This measure, the fruit of long agitation, led by figures such as Daniel O'Connell in Ireland, finally removed the principal civil disabilities that had barred Catholics from sitting in Parliament and holding most public offices. For the Holy See, this represented a significant step forward in a land where penal laws had once been among the harshest in Europe. Pius welcomed the change, seeing in it an opportunity for the Catholic faith to breathe more freely in the British Isles without the old burdens of legal discrimination. In strictly ecclesiastical affairs, he showed himself a disciple of Pius VII, broad-minded where doctrine permitted, yet resolute in defending essential principles. His first encyclical, Traditi Humilitate Nostrae of May 1829, set the tone. It reaffirmed the Church's exclusive claim to truth, warned against religious indifferentism, condemned the proliferation of unauthorized vernacular Bible translations that might sow confusion among the faithful, and reiterated opposition to secret societies. A year later, in March 1830, the brief Litteris Altero renewed earlier condemnations of Freemasonry. On the thorny question of mixed marriages, unions between Catholics and Protestants, he issued guidelines in Litteris Altero Abinc, insisting that the Church could bless such unions only when assurances were given for the Catholic upbringing of children. Otherwise, priests might offer only passive assistance as witnesses. He applied these norms with pastoral flexibility in Germany, but remained more cautious in places like Ireland and Poland, where the Catholic population was overwhelmingly dominant. He also attended to the growing church beyond Europe. He approved the decrees of the First Provincial Council of Baltimore in 1829, the first formal gathering of the American hierarchy, a sign of his interest in the young and expanding communities of the New World. He reorganized several dioceses in North America, establishing new sees and adjusting boundaries to meet pastoral needs. Yet the most dramatic challenge of his reign came in the summer of 1830 with the July Revolution in France. The overthrow of the legitimate Bourbon king Charles X and the installation of the Orleanist Louis-Philippe as a constitutional monarch posed a dilemma. Many French clergy viewed the change with alarm, seeing it as another triumph of revolutionary principles. Pius, however, after some hesitation, accepted the new regime. He urged French bishops to recognize Louis-Philippe, hoping thereby to preserve the Concordat of 1801 and maintain workable relations between church and state. In this decision, he delegated much of the diplomatic handling to his Secretary of State, Cardinal Giuseppe Albani, who leaned strongly toward Austria but followed the Pope's desire for pragmatic accommodation. In the Papal States themselves, Pius sought to soften some of the stricter policies of his predecessor. He removed certain economic restrictions, such as the grids that had limited wine sales in taverns without accompanying meals, earning modest popularity among the people. His health, never robust, deteriorated steadily. Afflicted by painful illnesses, he received the last sacraments on November 28, 1830, and died 2 days later in the Quirinal Palace at the age of 69. Rumors of poisoning circulated at the time, as they so often did in Rome, but no credible evidence supports them. Pius VIII is sometimes remembered as a transitional figure, a mild and scholarly pope who bridged the more reactionary pontificate of Leo XII and the turbulent reign of Gregory XVI that followed. Yet in his brief time he embodied a certain style of governance, firm on principle, conciliatory in application, attentive to the signs of the times without yielding on essentials. In an age when the Church faced both revolutionary upheaval and the slow emergence of modern liberties, he sought to steer a middle path, welcoming genuine advances in religious freedom, as in Britain, while remaining wary of ideologies that threatened the integrity of the faith. His story reminds us that the papacy, for all its enduring claims, has always been exercised by men shaped by their era, men who, like Pius VIII, carried the scars of imprisonment under Napoleon, the weight of canon law in their minds, and a quiet hope that the Church might yet find ways to live in a changing world without losing its soul.